This episode of Android Authority is brought to you by Netflix. Head to netflix.com/android for a free 30-day trial. Isn't it great to finally get some real releases rather than just leaks and rumors? This week we got a new lineup from Motorola. The new Nexus 7 was finally unleashed. And now we also have a new way of watching online content. Oh, and we also got more Moto X leaks. Hey, it's Joshua Vergara from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And it's time for another dose of the week's top Android news. It's Android Authority Weekly. After months of hearing about the new flagship phone by Motorola, the Moto X was actually put aside this week in lieu of a brand new lineup of DROID phones. Verizon's DROID event this past week was covered very well by Chris, and he actually made a rundown video for all of you, so if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you check it out when you have a chance. Anyway, Motorola effectively bolstered Verizon's device lineup by introducing 3 new droids: the DROID Mini, the DROID Ultra, and the DROID Max. The DROID Mini is the smallest of the bunch, coining the phrase compact without compromise. We're looking at a smaller phone that definitely brings the power. A 4.3-inch 720p screen is backed up by a rather mysterious mobile computing system currently called the Motorola X8, which consists of a quad-core GPU, a dual-core CPU, and a couple single-core processors for contextual computing and natural language processing, respectively. The DROID Ultra looks to fulfill the promise of its name by bringing an incredible experience in what Motorola claims is the thinnest Android set available. It is just over 7mm thick. You get a 5-inch 720p display on here with the Motorola X8 mobile computing system and a 10-megapixel clear pixel camera that is found across all 3 devices. The DROID Max is perhaps the most anticipated of the bunch, as any battery life woes you may have had in the past will be solved by its 3500 mAh battery. Sporting all of the same inner specs as the Ultra, you'll have the X8 processing package that the Max claims will run for 48 hours. All 3 of these new droids sport features we saw in Moto X leaks, like the open mic. I think it's pretty safe to say that Motorola is right back in the game with their new offerings. Or at the very least, they made quite the splash this past week. You can pre-order all of these new droids at Verizon and they will ship on August 20th. And from one press event we move on to another. Google had its breakfast event this past week and brought us a couple of very well received updates and one product that just might be a sleeper hit. I did the rundown video for that particular event, so if you still haven't seen it, make sure you check it out for all of the in-depth information. Android 4.3 was finally made official and brings with it optimizations on top of few new features, mainly support for a new OpenGL system and restricted profiles that are more or less like parental controls. It ships on the new Nexus 7 and should be made available to other Nexus devices in due time, even though plenty of people have been expressing their disdain over not getting it yet. And like expected, the Nexus devices are getting them first, but the Google Play editions of the Samsung Galaxy S4 and HTC One are going to get it soon. As for OEMs, Sony is currently the only one to come forward, stating that they are currently working on getting 4.3 to the Xperia line in the near future. And then we move on to the Nexus 7, the new, slimmer, thinner, and all-around more powerful tablet. The hotly anticipated 7-inch tablet is finally here, with a slightly smaller but overall much better handling profile and better bits underneath. The Snapdragon S4 Pro, the Adreno 320, 2GB of RAM, and 16GB on the base model. Oh, and there's also a 5-megapixel camera on it now. You can get the new Nexus 7 now for $229 on the base model and $269 for the 32GB model. Oh. And finally, the Chromecast. An extremely affordable $35 peripheral that makes any HDMI-capable TV a smart TV. What was once the Nexus Q, essentially, has been shrunken down and streams content straight from outlets like YouTube and Netflix. Plenty of people have been flocking to the Chromecast, and for good reason. It's got great potential, all of which was outlined by our own Derek Ross in a look on how the Chromecast has just helped the living room evolve. So, we got our new Nexus 7. But what about our Nexus 10? The larger tablet by Google and Samsung had a near-perfect first attempt, and now we can't wait to see what they have in store for the next one. Well, someone from the Wall Street Journal got to talk to Sundar Pichai, who gave us a signature Google tease. Apparently, the Nexus 10 is coming out in the near future. It's nice to know we're getting our Nexus devices soon, as all we have left then is the Nexus 5, and then hopefully Android 5.0 after that. But of course, we can't go long without more Moto X leaks. This week's leak brought us a little bit more information about the build of the phone and a possible accessory. Supposedly, the Moto X will sport Moto Magic glass, which is basically a slab of Gorilla Glass molded in such a way as to create a gap-free surface all around the phone. It could also feature dual LTE antennas along with another antenna for 2 or 3G, instead of the usual one antenna that handles both. And finally, the fabled smartwatch that Google was supposedly working on might be launched with the Moto X on August 1st. In the end, we're just waiting with bated breath for whatever Moto and Google has in store for us on the 1st. And so, there you have it for this edition of Android Authority Weekly. As always, a written companion for this video can be found in the description below, right next to where you can drop us a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Chris is back this week fielding your questions on Q&A and giving something cool away on the Sunday giveaway. And as for me, you can meet me back here at the same time and the same place for your next dose of the week's top Android news. Android Authority, because we are your source for all things Android.